is every single.
It's time for the King and the Cop with the legendary former MLB great Jim Leyritz, and with 100 years of law enforcement in his blood, Tommy Sedner. It's all things sports, plus cop talk, current events, entertainment, and more. Joined by America's favorite Jersey girl, Robin DeLory. It's the King and the Cop.
It's March 20th, and we're live on the King and the Cop. And tonight, we're back, and we're talking baseball. Jimmy Leyritz is at a charity event. The King is doing some charity work tonight, but our loyal partner, Andy Skeels, three-time World Series champion with the Giants, and more importantly for tonight's subject, I believe the first manager of New Zealand in the WBC back when. And our Jersey girl is off tonight, but she's behind the scenes helping out as always. Andy Skeels from California. How are you, my brother?
Doing good. Dodging rain out here, but in good shape.
I'm not used to hearing California people cry about the rain, so I don't feel sorry.
No, it's all good. We need it.
Lead with the conversation. It's 75 and sunny every day, but I know California is getting beat up a little bit. No, I don't think anybody knows what the hell season it is or what kind of weather there's going to be anymore where you're at, but whole different political subject than global warming, whether you believe or you don't believe. But I want to ask you what you do believe in. Now, you were the first manager for New Zealand. I think you were the first Major League Baseball player from the country of New Zealand, correct?
First native-born New Zealander to make it to the big leagues. When it came around to picking a manager for their inaugural entrance into the World Baseball Classic, it was a short list. So, but I was very proud, and like I said, I was born there, and but it was a great event. There you go.
Yeah, our audience knows that to Andy in the middle, obviously the first manager, and to the left, I guess my left, I'm looking at his brother Mark Skeels, former GM of the Newark Bears in Jersey, but Mark is a prominent attorney out in San Diego, and so is his brother David on the right, who was a catcher, I believe, right, for the team.
He was one of our catchers. Yeah, he had a really good tournament. Kind of shows you a little bit how thin we were, but because he was at that point a 40-year-old lawyer who came out of retirement.
Yeah.
But he played really well, so he was a big piece of what we got done out there. So it was nice.
What a thrill. Great picture of you there as the manager, and you've had so much success over, God knows, a 30-year career. But tell me, I know you because you spent a lot of time in the New York, New Jersey area. You can imagine the airwave with Edwin Diaz going down. The hate, I think there's they want a mafia hit on somebody because the Mets season arguably is in danger. It was going to be tough enough with Philly and Atlanta, but the old trumpets have stopped playing in New York because Diaz is out for the year. Now, that being said, Andy, that could have happened playing cards when he got up from the table. Something had to be there prior to that. It wasn't like a pile-on that snapped his tibia or whatever was the final injury, ACL or all the above. But is the risk reward in when you're paying a guy $100 million? What do you think about and Altuve now going down with a thumb injury for Houston? What do you think about the overall picture there? Does pride overwhelm common sense? Because a lot of owners didn't let their guys participate.
Well, first I'd say there's a lot of things that overcome common sense. So I don't know that I'd use that as a baseline for anything that ever happens in the game of baseball. But, I think for a lot of players in the Latin American countries, I mean, this is a big, big deal. It's a great tournament, and it's fun. I mean, there's no other way around it. I mean, the chance to wear the jersey for your country is a big deal. Even I don't care what country you're from. So to your point, though, I think he could have gotten hurt getting off the bus.
Right.
He chose to go into a celebration. Apparently, I think it's patellar, but with his kneecaps, which unfortunately has had a bad history of recovery. He might, and I'm sure the Mets will do everything they can to get him back on the field. But the number of athletes who've come back and played at the level that they have before isn't real good. Now, granted, most of those injuries were basketball and football related. So whether or not that's going to be indicative of how he's going to return on the mound, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I mean, ownership has to sign off on it, and it's tricky. I mean, some starters in some organizations, especially those coming off injuries, or somebody you just gave a lot of money to. Some of it's you just hope and pray that nothing wrong happens. But it's a little hard to deny these guys an opportunity to play for their country.
Well, Andy, you're right. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, really, because you want them to play for their country. And first of all, how about the world getting to see Mike Trout, who we really want to see, but we don't get to see as much because the Angels are never in the playoffs. But and that goes for a lot of different players. But the Marlins, they haven't packed that stadium in maybe never or forever. And here you have the place sold out 4 nights in Miami. The Americans were basically there was more fans rooting for Cuba than there was the Americans last night. So I guess you can argue it is very good for the game. I'm sure that's the way Major League Baseball is looking at it. But you can't tell me that Buck, Showalter, and Cohen, the owner, their heart went right in their throat. I mean, and the Yankees on the other side decided no, they weren't letting their pitchers go, and like you're right, they could have fell off the bus and got hurt. But what do you after this is over, this 2-week event? You got 162 games to play, and now there is no Diaz, there is no Altuve for 3 months.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard thing to assess. It's kind of a tired cliche, but it just means that somebody else needs to step up. And unfortunately, like anything else, somebody's going to get an opportunity. Buck's smart enough to understand how his bullpen really kind of falls and who might be, whether it's through a trade or whether it's something else. But, I'm a big believer that in baseball, you tend to arrange your rosters, or at least your hopes and expectations, around the fact that you are going to lose your best player at some point. And so, you have to have, contingency plan 1, 2, and 3. And with Buck, as thorough as he is, and I mean, he's a great baseball guy. So I'm sure, he's been thinking about that a lot. And the truth is, if you're not a good enough team to sustain one injury, then you're not a good enough team, because that really is the meaning of the word, especially in baseball, is team, right? Yeah. So if it's just one guy.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. But in this case, where it's your bullpen and your backup is a veteran, it's Dave Roberts, who we all saw with the Yankees for a time and was nasty for a little bit. But he's coming off some injuries, and he's up there in age. I want to say he might be close to 40, if not 40. Is that your answer? Is that your backup? I mean, or do they got to go out shopping and find committee bullpen there? Put 2 or 3 guys together.
Well, there's nothing to say that. I mean, as good as the Mets are, that they can't be or hang around till the All-Star break or trade deadline.
Right.
You might pick off a guy, from somewhere else who currently is having the kind of numbers that Diaz would normally have, and he might be available. You might be able to take a shot at that. So, at which point you say, well, all right, we still got one of the game's best closers. Now he's on our team. and we're still in striking distance. So who's to say that that doesn't happen? So
Steve Cohen obviously is the fans love him so far. And the first thing he did is he had his surgery, and then he sent him a personal trainer and a personal chef. And it's sure not going to be from the Mets' lack of trying to get him ready, but he's definitely lost for the year. But who did you think was the favorite prior to this? And I ask you that because if you didn't know who Trey Turner is, the world knows who he is now. I mean, the Phillies got themselves a monster. Got themselves. I sound like I'm from Philly. $300 million man, and he looks like he's going to be worth it. If anybody's worth that kind of money, he sure likes the big spotlight.
yeah, I don't think there's anybody in the game who didn't think Trey Turner, if he's not the best, he's certainly in the top two. And any franchise would be lucky to have him, because he's kind of been on, like I said, in baseball, he's on everybody's radar by the time he came up to the big leagues. Everybody knew this kid was going to be a star, but that's where good players and prospects, all of a sudden, 2, 3, 4 years, they turn into superstars, and Trey Turner is certainly a superstar. So it's nice for him to get a big stage where he can show those things off. But as far as a favorite, I don't know. These tournaments can be weird. It takes maybe one loss, or your bullpen gets scattered for another game, and you're out of the tournament. So, and then again, teams have got a lot of players and the right kind of pitching matchups. It's such a short tournament. In terms of like going through the last month of the season and the playoffs. So a little hard to set things up, but you do as best you can. But certainly the United States would be a favorite, and as well as Japan. So, and that's the way it's turned out so far.
If you're just joining us, you're watching The King and the Cop, and Robin Delory, the Jersey girl, is off tonight, and the King, Jimmy Leyowitz, is at a charity dinner. But we are by far honored to have 3-time World Series champion with the San Francisco Giants, and in our subject of the World Baseball Classic, the first manager of New Zealand. And we're talking a little bit of baseball. We're 10 days, 11 days, Andy, from opening day. The Yankee fans here feel like they have their own Trey Turner, but we're unsure. Is Anthony Volpe going to be the opening day starter for the Yankees at the shortstop position? Another highly qualified young guy, but they're not sure if they want to put him in the big leagues yet. What's your thoughts on that? He's having a great spring training.
How many at-bats do you have in AAA?
0.
Oh, well, I think it was like 23. Yeah, I think
they called him up at the end, I guess.
One of the things that you're very aware of as a manager and as an organization is those wins and losses in the beginning of the season, first month and a half, they count big. So it's not to say that maybe he's ready. I don't know. I haven't seen him play in the last year, but it's a little hard to take somebody who's got that little experience and throw them into the cooker that New York City is, and the whole Yankee thing. That's a lot. It'd be a lot for a veteran to handle, let alone a kid. And there's a big difference from being a prospect or a top prospect. Obviously everybody thinks he's going to be a good player, and at some point he's going to take over. But me personally, I'd err on the side of caution.
Well, Andy,
you got to remember, you don't have established veterans up the middle,
right? And they don't know what they're doing with Torres, but you know better than anybody. You had Bumgarner, you had Posey. Well, who's some of the young guys that you had, and you had that pressure on you of saying, hey, they're ready, they're not ready. I remember watching Bumgarner, 19 years old, when I went down, and you're like, he's still 19 years old. Now he went on to be an absolute stud. But what are your thoughts? Like, you lived it. What would you do what are you recommending at this point?
Well, I think one of the biggest assets that New York has right now is the fact that Brian Sabian's working for him.
Yeah,
And Brian is the guy, along with, some people in New York. They built that, Jeter, Posada, Mariano. They built all of that, and then they came out to San Francisco with the Giants, and they built it again. And Brian Sabian was the architect of all that.
right.
So this is a man who understands how it's not just the talent; it's how they work as a team. And so in the case of Bumgardner, he was surrounded by nothing but veteran guys, and and a very veteran manager who had won a lot of games in the big leagues, and probably, in my estimation, the greatest pitching coach that we've seen in the last 30 years, Dave Righetti, also a former Yankee.
Yankee,
So
yeah.
you had a lot of support for him that allowed him to do what he could do, and he was a dominating kid even at 19 years old. The next year, you have Buster Posey.
Right.
Now, Buster was the same way. I mean, this guy, there wasn't any other challenge left for him in the minor leagues. And it got to the point where, no, this guy is our future, no question. And here's a great opportunity with a really veteran coaching staff, with a really veteran manager, and with a great pitching coach who can help him in some of those the finer points of running a ball club, running a team, running a staff. And so the, the Giants set things up purposely for people to be in a position where they were not going to have to be relied upon to carry any of the load. Right? You didn't get to the big leagues until now he's ready,
Right.
and you just hope all the veterans and they always did. Like when Crawford came to the big league, same thing. No question, he was a big league shortstop, but he was surrounded by great people.
So
So
he didn't have that individual pressure all on him to prove something. He had guys nurturing him, you're saying.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, did he have to be the guy offensively? No. At that point, you had Scudero, who was a phenomenal major leaguer. You had Buster behind the plate, and then Belt comes up right behind him. So all he had to do was catch the ball. Just
Yeah,
go catch the ball, and turn all the double plays we need you to turn.
I want to get back to Sabian in a minute. Juvo, one of our good friends and loyal watcher listeners, the injury has cost the Mets a title run. Worse yet, there's not a replacement. You can argue that, Andy, because the Mets really had their eggs all in that $100 million basket there with him. Like you said, they could go shopping. They're strong enough. But what happens if the Braves and the Phillies get off to a sprint and they're on their way? I mean, the Phillies went to the World Series last year and they bettered their team. Do the Mets start feeling sorry for themselves, or do you think they got enough firepower? And let's be honest, Max is in his 40s, Verlander's pushing it. Does everybody still have another unbelievable season for them? Because that's what they're going to need right now.
Well, that's the beauty of baseball, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those questions where you kind of wring your hands, but at the same time, you say, "Well, we'll see." We'll see. I mean, the Mets are going to have to figure out a way to patch things together early in the season, because Philadelphia and Atlanta are really, really put together very well.
Right.
And they're going to have to really fight to kind of stay even with them, or at least close enough. So I don't know. Are the Mets made up that way? We'll find out. I don't think, me personally, I wouldn't question whether Verlander or Max, if it's in them. We'll see if they can stay healthy. But I don't think anybody questions whether or not they can stay tough enough throughout the season.
I guess I should by saying, do they feel pressure to go longer in the game? They're first of all, they don't need any pressure. They love to go longer in the game. Those two, they gut it out. They're old school. But do the Mets starters feel pressure to not get to that bullpen as quick, because everybody's got to step up, like you said?
Well, I think Buck's smart. I think Buck has got a good idea that if I can get, through, rather than just 6 innings, hopefully maybe through 7 with some of your starters who are throwing really well. I'm sure he's going to be inclined to maybe give him a little extra rope because of the cumulative effect on bullpens. So I don't know. Like I said, they've game planned all this out. So we'll have to see. Again, it's like I said, it's an old cliche, but guys are going to have to step up. You got to pick up the slack somewhere.
You mentioned Sabian, and he's a legendary guy in the front office, and you're right, he built that dynasty. I don't know if you got to see today, the Yankees signed yet another front office guy that's been around New York. Omar Minaya is changing pinstripes. He's now a executive senior advisor to Cashman.
Yeah, I've known Omar since my days with the Expos. He was the GM there, so I go back with Omar a long way. He's a solid veteran baseball man, and he'll have a few ideas that I'm sure they'll ask him about, and he'll be a good touchstone for a lot of things. So I think anytime you get some of those old baseball guys back, they offer some very unique perspectives, and certainly with Sabes, it's not just that he's got a lot of experience in the game; he has a lot of experience winning.
Right.
So that's a big differentiator. I mean, there's a lot of guys who've been around the game maybe for a lot of years. Can't tell you a thing about how to win though.
Yeah,
so
we talk about this. You authored a book, and basically it talks about going back old school, and all of a sudden people are starting to go back a little old school. Maybe these 27-year-old, and I'm being sarcastic and a wise ass, geniuses that never played the game before, maybe it's really not working out. And maybe we do need some guys with some infield dirt under their fingernails. And like you said, been there, won the game, been there, had a beer with the manager, know how to relate, know how to talk. You think the pendulum's starting to swing again?
I'd love to say that I think it is. I'm not convinced. I think, there's a massive pressure when it comes to any new system. I mean, you can think back to your policing days. I mean, think about it 20 years later, and there's a massive influx of new leadership, and they want to prove that their thinking is right.
Yep.
Right. They're not willing to say that, well, the old way was the old way, but look, I'm armed with data, and it's a new day, and it's a new way of teaching, and new way of policing, and everything you used to know about it is wrong. And I'm here to tell you what came down on the stone tablets doesn't even exist today anymore.
Yeah, that's
so.
And by the way, in our world, that's a shame also, because it costs lives. In your world,
well, that's the problem.
Right.
Right. So I think you, whether it's policing or whether it's just a game like baseball, you run the risk of, when you chase out all that institutional knowledge, and more importantly, knowledge about how people work, right? Your instincts as a cop were largely formed by your interactions with all the people that you were around and with, and all the leadership you got for, while you were coming up.
Yep.
Baseball was no different, but baseball, for a while got rid of so much of it. They didn't want to hear it. Right. So I think in some cases, there's a lot, you look at Dusty Baker winning, and everybody kind of brushes it aside as, well, that's kind of a one-off. But now Bruce Bochy's back in the game, and certainly, he's the first ballot Hall of Famer. Brian Sabian is back with the Yankees, and certainly he's a first ballot Hall of Fame executive, no question. So I think better clubs and smarter clubs recognize that we made a big mistake chasing out all these people, from player development to scouting to the front office. You just can't run it like, it's Google's cubicle space where, we'll just hire, 1,000, 2,000 kids who are 21 years old, and yeah, they're smart, but they don't know how to run a business.
Right. And
And that's
you mentioned Coach. He comes back in the game. He's not coming back to rebuild something. He's coming back to win for our New York, New Jersey audience. Jacob DeGrom. What's your thoughts on that? They're obviously they're serious about winning. They've added a couple guys, and they got, like you said, a first ballot Hall of Fame manager. Is Texas finally going to cut through this heat and build some veterans and build some youth together? What do you think? Do you think they got a shot to make the playoffs this year? And I know it's all about pitching. Does DeGrom last the whole year? What are you hearing? Is he hurt? Is he not hurt?
well, I hear he's banged up, and I don't know that he makes it for the beginning of the season. But I think Texas has shown a willingness to at least say, you know what, however we were doing things for the last 10 years, that don't work.
Right.
And ownership is committed to the idea that, culture, especially in baseball, well, even in your job, right? It's important. It's not just, how you maybe play the game, but being able to instill this idea that, the name on the front of your jersey is more important than the name on the back of your jersey.
Right.
And I think Boch will bring a lot of that. I think, he brings instant credibility. And a lot of this has to do with the massive overreach by the front office, thinking that they can control every aspect of the game, right? They run their little computer guys down to the dugout. Maybe they want to turn them into coaches. Well, just giving them a uniform and calling them a coach in the program doesn't make it so. And so I think Boch is going to have a big influence on that. And certainly Chris Young, who's a former 17-year veteran, he understands that as well. And he's a Princeton guy, so he's a smart guy. I think Texas, I don't know how things are going to go this year, but they're certainly committed to doing things to try to build a winner. And I think Boch and DeGrom are the first piece of that puzzle.
Yeah. Hey, and you're a San Diego guy, and I'm bouncing around, but we're trying to hit a little baseball, a lot of baseball. I guess I got to look up a final score and see if Mexico, United States is the finals tomorrow. I'm not sure, but it's not rumored; it's being leaked now that San Diego Padres offered Aaron Judge a lot more money to come and play there, and finally he got that call from Steinbrenner, convinced him to come back and get on the plane, go back to his hometown in California, and then come back to New York. Not that what he got is chump change, but it was pretty cool to see some loyalty there. Like, you just can't be bought for. I guess I'm talking two-faced now, because I guess when you sign that kind of contract, how much do you need? But the old saying goes, "Don't count other people's money." But what's your thought on San Diego? I mean, they have boatloads of money. They're like the old Yankees.
I think again, it goes back to the people who are in charge of things, and it goes back to how much you're really committed to winning. You got to remember, the guy who took over as the managing general partner is a guy named Peter Seidler. Mm-hmm. Well, not for nothing, grandson of Walter J. O'Malley.
Right, little bloodline there.
This guy understands winning, and I think he was smart. I think one of the things he did that was really smart was he recognized that San Diego is in some ways kind of an odd city, because they're sort of landlocked, south, that's Mexico. West, you got the ocean. The east, you got desert. And north, you got LA and San Francisco. So you're kind of on a little bit of an island there. But San Diego loves their baseball. They want a winner. And they don't have an NFL franchise. They don't have an NBA franchise. So they're kind of unique. And I think he realized, look, I want a title. I'm tired of being recognized for having the 10 best minor league prospects. So what? That doesn't get you into the playoffs, doesn't win you World Series. That has nothing to do with it. So I think his direction has been a real strong influence. and his commitment is with. I mean, he's put up. I mean, it's one thing for for certain ownership groups or whatever. Oh yeah, we want to win a World Series. Well, what have you done?
Yeah.
Well, the Padre ownership has said no, we're all in, and the city has gone crazy. So they love it. They want. They'll spend anything on anybody if they think it's going to make them a better team.
Yeah. Now you go up a little bit further up to 5 or whatever. Educate me. And why'd Artie Marino pull the team off the for sale lot and is staying? What do you hear about that?
That's a good question. The people that I've talked to have been either kind of in the dark or everybody's pretty mum about why. I think Artie. Well, one thing is he's got Otani,
You're right.
and Otani. I mean, if you're just doing this strictly by business, Otani is a massive chip. So, in terms of leveraging, if he wants to leverage the Angels, he's going to get all that money back. Either if he keeps Otani, now his franchise is worth a lot more money, and if he dumps Otani, he just saved himself about probably $400-500 million.
Yep.
So
What do you think
I'm
happens?
not, huh?
What do you think happens? Is he gone at the trade deadline?
That's a good question. I think if I'm Otani's agent or if I'm Otani himself, I want to see the Angels. They're going to have to change some things. I think one of the good things is they got Phil Nevin and they brought him back. He's a great manager and he's really good inside the clubhouse. So I think that's going to help with the perception that they are trying to do things better. But I think at the end of the day, Angels are going to have to make leadership changes in their front office, with player development and scouting. They are going to have to do things differently in order to compete, because otherwise they're going to be, the Oakland A's, maybe win every 10 years. And in which case, I think he'll make an exit too. So.
Well, you might see him in Philly, back home on the Jersey border. Before we leave baseball, what about your old team, the Giants? What are you thinking? What's it look like for them this year?
I don't know that I'd be real encouraged if I was a Giants fan. Right. Giants fans are awesome though. They'll show up and they'll support whoever's wearing their uniform. But I think for a lot of Giants, especially the decade or so where we were winning all those World Series, and every year going to spring training and opening day of the season was exciting. I think those days are behind them. I think their front office probably has some different ideas about how they want to get back in the game, but they've really shot themselves in the foot, both developmentally and with the fans. I think if, like I said, these guys are hardcore. They're just like Yankee fans. I don't care if your team stinks, you're still a Yankee fan. Same thing. If you're a Giant fan, you're always a Giant fan. So,
right.
The base is there. But I think it's going to be a lot harder to make some inroads. They've got a lot of work to do improving that roster.
I skipped over the Dodgers, and not on purpose, but I really I think the Padres are a better team than the Dodgers right now. Might be even more exciting than the Dodgers team.
Well, no doubt they're more exciting, and I don't think there's any question that they're a better team right now. So that's where at least in the National League West, the thing is the Diamondbacks have very quietly been making some really good changes. So probably the Diamondbacks and the Padres might be the two best teams in that division. But LA ran. I think. I like the way they did it. I mean, they were great at developing their own players, and they were right a lot of times about, just like the Braves were, 15 years prior to that. They were good about keeping the right guys and getting rid of the guys who maybe were a little overrated. But as you make runs for World Series, that payroll expands. Well, once you get into the luxury tax, 2, 3 times, that gets really, really expensive.
Yeah.
And so you make an executive decision about, where do we really see our chances of winning a World Series? And maybe for a year or two, you pull back so you can reset that luxury tax, and also take care of some of the stuff that's going on in your minor league system. Because as prolific as they were maybe 6, 7 years ago, talent level on the minor league side has kind of dropped off a little bit. So the guys now, having said that, you got to get guys like James Outman. This guy's a terrific young player, and when he, I don't know if he'll break with the team. I think he probably will, but I mean, he's a good one. Dustin May is, if for those people who haven't seen him, this guy's electric. And Walker Buehler was hurt,
Right.
And Walker Buehler is easily one of the 3 best pitchers in the game when he's healthy. His stuff is unbelievable. So the Dodgers aren't that far away. Dodgers are smart. Stan Kasten and his group, these guys, and Andrew Friedman, these guys are really, really sharp. So, I think just kind of they pushed the reset button maybe a year ago. They might push it again for this year, but I think they're not gonna go to sleep. So I would expect the Dodgers to be a force very soon.
They're not going to settle for the Padres being the number 1 show in California. But
No.
Hey, listen, old school though. Your Giants are coming for opening day at Yankee Stadium. A little throwback there, Giants Yankees opening day. Crawford going against his brother-in-law Cole. So a little fun there for opening day for Yankee fans.
Yeah, back to the borough.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Crawford does not want that opening day start against Garrett Cole. But you never know. But I'm sure it'll be fun for Crawford for sure. Anytime you get a chance to, especially a National League team, anytime you get a chance to go play in Fenway and Yankee Stadium, I mean, it's awesome. So I'm sure they'll love it. I don't know how it's going to end up, but I'm sure they'll enjoy going out there for sure.
Snow. Speaking of Fenway, our man Juvo is a diehard Red Sox fan. I don't see it. I don't see them this year. Where do you think they start climbing back up? I mean, a tough division. Toronto's tough. Obviously, Yankees. Baltimore showed a lot of life last year. Who do you like? You got to like the Yankees early on, I'm assuming.
I think the Yankees and the Blue Jays are for sure the class of the league. You mentioned Baltimore, and certainly they've been impressive with what they've done in a short period of time. And I think this year and next year will be a big milestone for them as a franchise to see if they can kind of claw their way out and really get that kind of respect. But for now, I think the Yankees and the Blue Jays for sure would be the dominant players in that league.
All right, let's pop on here because I know on this different subject. I know you got a little pride. New Jersey is now starting to be known in March Madness as the upset capital. We had St. Peter's last year, who nobody even knew it was the St. Peter's College anywhere, and they upset a bunch of people, and they were what do they call it, darling of the dance last year. This year, Fairleigh Dickinson University. They have 2 campuses, one in our hometown of Florham Park, the other one in Teaneck, and they wind up with one of the, I guess it was the second time only upset a 16 seed beats a number 1, and then they lost last night to Florida Atlantic by 7 or so. But the other team in New Jersey, and here's what the disappointment was. Rutgers deserved to get in, and they didn't. We're used to Seton Hall every year challenging. They didn't, but Princeton did. So not only are they smart, they're in the Sweet 16. So your team, again, upset a number 1, Arkansas. Now, I know you're a Hall of Famer at the University of Arkansas, All-American baseball player. And your email, I'm not going to give it out, but it starts with Razor. So you're a loyal to the Razorbacks. You following it? You watching Sweet 16?
Of course, they just took down the defending champ.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, Razorback baseball has been, or basketball has been phenomenal. Obviously, the win over Kansas was a big deal. The game in a lot of ways was really interesting because I mean it didn't appear to be even in the game till about like the last minute and a half. And it's interesting because their head coach, Musselman, he says we can beat any team in the country, and we could also lose to everybody in the country. So he's got a really young team. The unfortunate thing for Arkansas was early on, I think first or second game, they had lost Nick Smith Jr. for most of the season. Now Nick coming into Arkansas was projected to be a lottery pick, either first or second in the nation. He was that good, and he didn't do much in the Kansas game, but certainly he's he's an NBA talent already, and you have a really young team, and you got a bunch of guys who have some skills. So I think those are the teams that are really dangerous. And as an opposing coach, you're like, gosh, I do not want to get into it with these guys because they can surprise you so easily. During the season, there's a few games they didn't really look very good, and you're wondering, gosh, are they going to limp their way through the tournament? And they kind of did. And then they make it in the tournament. And now all of a sudden, once you get there, you start believing, you know what, we can do this. And so you take hope from those teams like Fairleigh Dickinson who come out and just bam, they punch you in the mouth and they get out, and you're like, what just happened? So those teams are dangerous. So yeah.
Andy, as a college athlete, and I'm not going to give away your age, so you got to go back a little bit. But you were in the college, College World Series. It's time, like you really do find out who's going to step up and not. And like you said, baseball is a little different than basketball. But all of a sudden, you're facing a pitcher, and you go, "Well, wait, where did this guy come from?" And all of a sudden, now you're in a game, and all of a sudden, one of you pop a home run, and now you're down one. Basketball, like you said, they come out and punch, and they go on a 10-2 run, and you're like, wait a minute, we're going into halftime. We're supposed to be blowing these guys out. Is that where the boys start becoming men? Is that where
for sure? I mean, yeah, for sure, and that's the beauty of sports, really. I mean, because that's what you're waiting to see. You're waiting to see if that team that's supposed to be all that comes in and rolls over, the supposed patsy or the Washington Generals,
Right.
And then you get into a situation where if you let people hang around long enough, you put yourself in a position for somebody else to step up and say, this is my moment where I can step out. And when they do, I mean, that's the best thing in sports. That kid who's kind of been hitting about 270, 280, and all of a sudden he comes up with runners second and third, 2 outs, and laces a double down the right field line. Now all of a sudden, instead of being up by 1, you're down by 1.
Right.
And you got the other dugout or the other team just, wait a sec, what just happened here? And, that's, like I said, that's the beauty of tournament basketball. That's the beauty of the World Series. That's the beauty of all team sports when it comes down to, what? One guy that you never count on can make a huge difference.
I'm going to get in trouble for this, Ann, but you were adopted in New Jersey for a while. We're on the station of On New Jersey and of course Staten Island. So I'm going to just say it like this: New Jersey loves to punch you right in the face. They just love it. Jersey kids just love it. They love this crap. They start believing that it's real, that they're really better than that team. And guess what? All of a sudden you look up at the scoreboard and you're in trouble. And all of a sudden a minute to go and you're done. One and done. You're out. And I think Jersey it's starting to get contagious in Jersey. I really
that's what I love about sports because, it's like anything else. The press, the media, for the little guys, the parents or whatever, youth thing you got going on, you can talk all you want, but that fierce mentality that the Jersey guys have who are willing to say, you know what, this is a fight I want to get into.
Right.
because I can make a difference. And I think that's a great trait. It's something that you don't see everywhere. And I think that's one of the things I loved about being in New York and New Jersey, especially, was the fact that this kid doesn't know he's not supposed to be in this fight, and he's winning.
He's
And
winning.
that's a great attitude. Those are the guys, you want to go to war with. Those are the players you want to have. And it's that kind of attitude for sure is contagious.
Well, it's going to be fun. Watch it. Who do you like? You like Arkansas? I mean, again, it's Jersey like. They don't fear anybody. They beat the number one team in the country.
Yeah, I like teams that, of course, I'm rooting for them because they're my guys. But I think, especially as a former player, but then as a former coach, you like to see those guys who step up and say, "I don't care, give me whatever you got, but I will be swinging, down to the last second." So
Yeah.
I like Arkansas. Certainly some of the other teams have got a bigger profile right now. UConn's got a good team. There's some other teams that are still out there that put up a big season. So I don't know. We'll see. I think you learn a lot more after the next round, but certainly right now, all my chips are on the Arkansas Razorbacks for sure.
I got a smirk on my face because Juvo's weighing in again, and he was a highly decorated homicide narcotics cop who I had the honor of working with, just second to none. But funnier than that is also a great basketball player, and the Newark cops would play each other in basketball in the academy gym, and you would think they were playing March Madness because they were kicking the crap out of each other. So that dirty attitude, he's right, and it's called street attitude. It doesn't matter what level you were playing at. But Juve, tell me who you like and to win it all. But it'll be funny if Princeton, there's these collegiate Princeton, even more studious collegiate kids, and they're kind of laughing behind their back. They're no joke either. They're it seems like the 3-point game is just, it's, if you could shoot 3-pointers, man, you're hanging. You can hang and make foul shots, obviously. But let's not forget. I sound like we've had some pretty good basketball players come from New Jersey. One of them, our good friend Shaquille O'Neal, probably one of the greatest ever. But I got to ask you this, my friend. If you've been watching, because we play golf together, we love golf. We're frustrated PGA guys. You better than me. But
I think you're.
I talk a better game. But what do you think this live thing is really? I watched the tournament this week. It was in Tampa where we were on the radio for a while, and I got to be honest. I only turned it on because Jordan Spieth was there. Where did everybody go? And the CPC the week before, I think they're missing a little of the chutzpah. No Chambly, no Dustin Johnson, no I'm forgetting the other guy's name, and he won 4 majors. The kid that's have you seen that series on Netflix, the golf series?
I just saw that the other day. I started watching it for about a half hour. It looked really interesting.
Yeah, I binge watched it, but it dives into it a little bit. But what's your thoughts?
I think in the grand scheme of things, the PGA Tour is missing a lot of star power. They were just out here on the West Coast swing, and they showed up at Pebble Beach. I don't know, next to Augusta, but even Jack Nicklaus said if there's a golf course in heaven, it'll be Pebble Beach.
Right.
And they didn't have anybody there.
I don't understand that.
And but I think the problems that have plagued the PGA for a long time is the PGA, made people, and it was really the only game in town. And I think a lot of people and a lot of players, and there's so many stories about guys who were close or guys who couldn't make a living really trying to do what they wanted to do. New league comes along and offers up a chance to retire you for life. It's a hard thing for me to tell a player, don't take care of your family for 2 generations. So I don't blame the players that left. In some ways, I blame the PGA for not being smart enough to figure out how to bring that kind of payday, or at least a better payday, or at least, they're pretty content to be able to run all their rules and do things their way for 30, 40 years. And the way I look at it is, you got to remember, these people at the PGA, they built their careers on the back of Jack and Arnie,
That's right.
not the other way around.
Exactly. Well,
So,
they had to see it coming. So all of a sudden now the purses are being elevated and they're changing. They're making certain tournaments are a priority, and you're going to see more of the name guys. But why didn't you see this coming and do that before and just nip it and stop this live train that was coming at them?
well, again, I think you take any group of executives and people who've been fat and happy, they're more than happy to take their $1 million a year and just say, "Oh, everything's fine." And you built that on the back of these players who are struggling week to week, maybe that qualify for a tournament or live out of their cars. Yet you're living pretty high on the hog. So
Right.
it's not until somebody's hand is forced and you're publicly embarrassed that are people willing to either change or go off in a different direction. Why didn't they have more insight to knowing how their players felt? So, I just think like in a lot of things, change of leadership, or a good long hard look in the mirror, and you're forced with what you have to see on the PGA Tour these days. It's a little bit different. Now, that's not to say PGA Tour doesn't have some great players.
No, it's not the name players that we like names, like you mentioned. We even like watching.
Yeah, I mean,
senior.
if Phil shows up, nobody's at 50 years old. Nobody's expecting him to win. But if he gets close and he's in the hunt, everybody wants to see that,
They
right?
turn on TV on Sunday.
Exactly. They're like,
Yeah.
"Are you kidding me? Phil's close? Yeah, I want to see that." And you know, but the PGA Tour still has a lot of great young players. But it's kind of like when they expanded Major League Baseball, right? They expanded by 4 teams. Now all of a sudden, you got guys who last year were in Double A. They're pitching in the big leagues. You're like, who
Great
are these guys?
It's a great
Right?
example.
So it takes a while to catch up before that many teams actually had solid major league teams. And the Marlins is one of those franchises in particular, which for a few years really, really struggled. Then they kind of changed leadership in their franchise. Things started getting back to normal. Then new ownership came in and decided to get rid of all of them. So, I think the PGA Tour is going to have to just get by with what they got going right now. I mean, McIlroy's probably the biggest name on the tour right now, and he's obviously, him and Tiger are big proponents of PGA, and that's fine. But I think what's going to happen is all those great players. It's going to be like the USFL. All the best players from the USFL finally get folded into the NFL and they expand, right?
Yep.
And now all of a sudden your brand is okay. Finally, we got all the best players, and there's no more competition. But I don't know. We'll see. But just as an off note, the guy who won at Valspar last week, a kid named Taylor Moore.
Yep.
It was his first PGA Tour victory, and so I'm real proud of this kid, and for a very specific reason. His father, Rod Moore, was a great center fielder at the University of Arkansas and my former roommate.
You're kidding me.
No.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, so I was real happy for his dad and his mom, who I both knew from college, and so yeah, hats off to him.
Now you could finally get some real lessons. So you can challenge me on things.
Yeah, right.
No, that's a great story because I didn't know that story, and I'm watching it, and I love Jordan Spieth, and I was rooting for him, and he kind of drills one into the water on the 16th hole, which was disappointing. And then the other kid, I'm already forgetting his name. He was going for his first win, and
gets stuck behind the tree.
Right, and he gets stuck behind it. Got to shoot hit the ball lefty to get it out, and you knew he was done. So that's a great story. Good for you. That's cool stuff.
Yeah, well, good for him. So, I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah, good stuff. Last before I let you go, we got a minute or two, and then I'm going to make a little statement. Who who do you feel? Do you think the Oakland A's? And it's the last question I have. Will they let baseball Oakland go to Vegas also?
I would.
Right? Is it
They're
aren't
they're, they're they're in Nashville.
right? Is
I,
Nashville even an option? Do you think, or it's a Vegas because there's a football team there already? And I know there's a football team in Nashville, but I'm saying like the hype that Vegas got.
I I think in a lot of ways Vegas is a more natural partner. But it's hard to ignore Nashville because it is a huge entertainment, not just country music, but all kinds of things are moving in there. They
Oh,
have an NFL team, they have a great hockey team,
yeah,
and Nashville is one of the bigger metropolitans. I mean, you think about it, dwarfs Baltimore, Maryland.
no
So
doubt.
what is Baltimore? Why is Baltimore still there? Why is Detroit still there? Why is Milwaukee still there?
So
So
another one, no state tax for the players.
yeah, that's a big one. So, well, in Nashville, taxes are, I don't know, first or second or third lowest anywhere in the country. So Nashville's a really attractive option. I think probably Vegas is in a better position. But I think both of those places uh, could use a major league franchise for sure.
Well, man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. As always, love seeing you. First of all, I
Yeah,
haven't been out to the West Coast in a while, and hopefully can have you on before the season starts or right around. Maybe we'll get you on for the Yankee Giant series.
yeah, there you go.
But talk to your brother almost daily recently. As always, he's my sounding board. But thanks, Skillsy. Appreciate it. Hope the rain stops so you can get back on the links and maybe
Yeah,
get some
exactly.
before I get
It's,
back out there.
killing me because I'm getting no rollout in the fairway.
Nothing, right?
Yeah,
You're
well, that is when I actually hit the fairway. But yeah,
you're doing it. You're picking it up and cleaning your ball off so you get a better lie anyway. Who you kidding?
that's environmentally friendly.
I'll see you, brother. I appreciate it. And last tonight on New Jersey, Andy. Just one thing. Thanks for being with me. Every family in our state, in our country, all around the world goes through difficult times, and sickness does not discriminate. And a couple weeks ago, my mother showed up at a wedding, her niece's wedding, after a third time with battling cancer, in a beautiful green gown, her Irish green, and looked as healthy as she was when she was 55. So I thank God for that. But tonight, my prayers go out to my mother-in-law, who for the last 15 days has been under the weather and in the hospital, fighting back herself. Another unbelievable lady, one of the strongest women. Her and my mother, the two strongest women I know, battling cancer, and spent a lot of time with her the last couple of weeks. And to my wife, no better daughter, who hasn't left her mother's bedside, and that's where Robin is. And I hope I'm not embarrassing you. She's there right now as we speak. Her mom's a little bit on the mend, and we're hoping and praying for the right thing. But at 11 o'clock at night, nothing more important than family, and that's where she is. So I wish everybody good luck. Stay safe. It's good to be back. We're looking forward to a good Yankee season and a Met season. And we love being here on New Jersey. And I just wanted to pay respect and honor those two ladies. Good night, everyone, and thanks for watching.